Hi, I'm Jordan Davis, and this will be the conclusion of my four-part interview with American roots musician Bob Frank. Bob's musical path began with a deep love for African-American country blues and branched out to include jazz, folk, and much more. He recently released his solo album, True Stories and Outrageous Lies, and his podcast is called Blues You Should Know. Bob, you've told us how you fell in love with blues music and started your first blues band when you were a teenager, and you continued to play blues for several years. Then you formed the Hotfoot Quartet, the bluegrass outfit that toured across the continent, and you played with them for almost 2 decades. You also briefly played in an Americanized world music fusion band called Macaw.
Just about 4 years. And I did 1 year with Mike Patrone's rock and roll band.
Yeah, the oldies group, 60s music group. That was a
it was fun.
Popular gig. Yeah. Well, by the mid-90s, there was a swing music revival happening across the country. And you answered the call to join the R&B outfit Blue Lunch, which became one of Cleveland's workingest bands for 2 decades at least. When you first got that call, what was the appeal for that music, and how did you see that fitting in with your own musical direction?
When I joined, they were kind of your basic Chicago blues type band, just did all the same songs everybody else did. And they told me that they wanted to go in a different direction, more towards what they called the West Coast sound. And it was a jumpier, swingier sound. So we started to work up a whole new kind of repertoire for the band. And we were playing at the Blind Pig downtown. And there was a couple that used to come in and they would do all this spectacular swing dancing. Everyone would watch them. And on a break, one of us said, how did you learn how to do that? And the girl said, well, we just moved here from California. And that's what everybody's doing now in California. She said, we used to go to punk clubs, but we got tired of getting beaten up dancing in mosh pits. So we learned how to do this. And that's how we found out about that whole so-called swing thing, which we never really were a part of intentionally. We played music that swung because any music that I like swings. Good music, to me, it swings. We heard all of the swing revival bands because we opened for just about all of them. And I didn't really like any of them. I thought they didn't swing.
Blue Lunch served as the backing band for a lot of national players and singers who came through town.
We had some great shows. We did a lot of shows with Candye Kayne, the late Candye Kayne. I loved working with her. She was the consummate professional. She came from such an unusual background. She had started out as a teenage runaway who became a pornographic actress and decided that she wanted to have a future. And she told me stories about how, when the other performers would be partying and using drugs, that she'd be in her room with a guitar trying to write songs. So she became at first a country singer, then she became a blues singer and very popular. She was very open sexually, and sang about it. When she got ill, she had pancreatic cancer, so she would get these bouts of pancreatitis. Could see that she was in just terrible pain, but she always gave 100% and stayed on tour right almost up until the end. She converted to Judaism because her son watched Fiddler on the Roof and decided he wanted to be Jewish. So she converted. She went to Israel, played in Israel. She was amazing. We also worked with Michelle Williams a bunch of times. Morale Coriel, we backed, the guitarist. We worked with Tad Robinson. We worked a lot with Sean Carney. We worked a lot with Billy Seward out of Florida, has a record on Del Mar.
And Blue Lunch also backed Little Milton at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, yes?
Yes, we did. It was the last show Little Milton did in town before he passed away. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You organized a lot of specialty shows. The annual Matzo Ball and Holiday Latke Party was a bang-up bash every Christmas day for years. And I remember the Saxophone Shootout was a particularly wild night.
Oh, yeah. We did 2 shows called Saxophone Shootout, where we'd bring in a couple of different saxophones. And the first one was really wild. We rented out a hall at Cleveland Public Theater. And we brought in Johnny View from the West Coast. And we brought in Sax Gordon Beetle from the East Coast. And they're probably the two premier R&B saxophone players on their respective coasts. And we had just a terrific show. We did it again a few years later and recorded it. And that's the album that's live from Nighttown, Sax Shootout 2.
And along the way, your own songwriting developed in this style. Yes?
Yeah, I started writing for Blue Lunch shortly after I joined the band. You know, if we needed a New Orleans flavored song, I'd write that. If we needed a slow ballad, I would write that. One of the things that I wanted to do when I joined was, instead of doing slow blues, because people like to slow dance, you know, that we would do ballads. So we started doing songs like Prisoner of Love and The Lonely One, and a couple that I wrote, rather than just doing Stormy Monday, which, you know, the world doesn't need another version of Stormy Monday, let's be honest.
Amen. And with Blue Lunch, you recorded 8 albums, and most of them you acted as the producer for.
Right. I produced all the Blue Lunch albums except for the last one. After producing 7 records, it was really nice not to. I didn't have to worry about anything but my own playing. It was great.
During this time, you were involved with the Cleveland Blues Society, which I think you were a founder of. Tell us a little bit about that and how that led to your career as a documentary filmmaker.
Oh, yes. Well, I've done 12 films about the different artists who were in the Cleveland Blues Hall of Fame. I was one of, I think, 5 or 7 folks that started the Cleveland Blues Society. And we decided we would have a Hall of Fame. The first year we put Robert Lockwood, Cow Cow Davenport, who lived here for quite a while, Mr. Stress, and Bull Moose Jackson. So I made a little film about each one, biographical film. And we showed it at the induction ceremony that we had. And then I put the films together and we put them online. We did a really nice couple of films, one about Crazy Marvin, the local blues singer, who's had an amazing life's history, and one about the Schwartz brothers, Glenn and Gene Schwartz. You know, Glenn Schwartz was sort of our homegrown rock star. He played with Pacific Gas and Electric and was heralded as, you know, one of the next big things. And then he underwent this very deep religious conversion, which led to his involvement in a religious cult for a number of years, and him being homeless for a certain amount of time, and then his sort of return to the scene. He played at Hoople's on every Thursday night for decades. And his brother, Gene, who was a world champion drag racer at one time, played bass for Robert Lockwood for, I think, 38 years. I think he spent with Lockwood. And I'm so glad we did, because Glenn passed away not too long after that. And I was able to get Glenn on camera talking about his life. And I was real pleased about that.
Like most musicians, you take side work, and you've done stage sessions and recording sessions for a wide variety of artists. You've also been an educator all this time, but you don't give private lessons. I find that interesting. Your education work has a different thrust.
Right. I teach in the macro rather than the micro. I have been with young audiences now. It's called Center for Arts Inspired Learning. It'll be 40 years this coming May. And I've done close to 4,000 programs probably for schools, libraries, whatever. This year and last year, for the first time in my life, I am teaching, and I'm doing group guitar classes for kids in the inner city. I'm doing 2 of the rec centers. One is in Glenville and the other is in Old Brooklyn. I teach them in a little group. It's fun. I've come to look at my job as selling passion. And if I can impart one thing to kids, it's that you can discover something that you love and do it for the rest of your life. Obviously, I don't think that for most kids, it's going to be playing 90-year-old music. But it can be something else. It can be cooking. It can be working on cars. It can be painting. It can be, rap. It can be, can be knitting or just something that they love. And they can do that for the rest of their life. And I think if I sell that idea to kids, I think I'm doing my job.
We wish you well in the COVID era and beyond, and hopefully you'll be able to return to live performing before too long. You have done a handful of live performances online.
Yes, I've done a few of those. I did for the Warehouse District and for Public Square, and I've done a whole bunch for Charlie Wiener. He's done a bunch of benefits, and one for the Bright Music Festival. They're fun. There's something kind of fun about having a 1 o'clock gig and getting up at noon, and not having to load the car. But I am getting hungry for the public. I miss playing for people.
Thank you, Bob, for sharing these stories with us. I know there are a lot more where these came from.
Thank you.
Bob will perform his original songs as part of the online Heights Music Songwriters Block series on Friday, April the 16th. Bob Frank is the host of the podcast Blues You Should Know, and his new solo album is called True Stories and Outrageous Lies. I'm Jordan Davis. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you around in Cool Cleveland.
I ain't trying to kill nobody. I'm just trying to get along. A Fleabag Motel, $19 and a quarter. Don't know why she had to take out a restraining order. Changed all the locks, put my clothes out in the street. Said she wouldn't leave me with enough to eat. Now I ain't saying I never did nothing wrong. I ain't trying to kill nobody.